We'll get to that game coming up in a second. It's such a big day that we have extra time. Welcome to a 3-hour edition of NFL Now on NFL Network from our very busy newsroom in Los Angeles. If they don't look busy, they're about to get busy. I'm Andrew Siciliano. If a trade happens in the next 3 hours, you're going to hear it right here. Are the Chargers, or the Bengals, or the Redskins, or the Falcons, are they open to trading away assets? 4 o'clock Eastern time is the deadline. We have you covered. Also coming up, has Joe Flacco taken his final snap of the season in Denver? We have details there on that injury. Plus, wait until you see who dropped in the power rankings. Dan Hanzus is here, and we will unveil that list shortly. How many ways do we have the trade deadline covered? New right now, it's kind of like the Brady Bunch. Look at all these smiling faces. Let me look up here. I got to turn. There's Ian Rappaport. There's Mike Garafolo. There's Tom Pelissero. There's Mark Ross. There's Charlie Casserly. Charlie, Mike just looked down on you. Charlie, look up. Look up. Look up on Mike. There you go. See how we did that? We're going to have fun for 3 hours.
Oh, we did that. We nailed it.
Like you guys nailed that. Was perfectly. Here's the story of the 4 o'clock Eastern time trade deadline. 4 of you go away. Let's get Ian and Ian and Mark. I'm confused already. All right, let's do this. Ian and Mark, right now. Thank you. As we start by teeing up Ian on who we could potentially see move. Starting with Chris Harris in Denver. Ian, what do we think? Is he getting moved?
At the very least right now, Andrew, the Broncos have received a couple feeler calls on Chris Harris. Not a ton of action, honestly, really. Not a ton of action on anyone, but teams are calling around. Chris Harris certainly is a target, and we know there's some cornerback needy teams. Philadelphia Eagles have been in the market for a cornerback for some time. So at the least, Chris Harris is a potential trade target today. We'll see if the Broncos continue to sell, obviously dealing Emmanuel Sanders early on in the process, but that is something that we will continue to monitor. Sounds like Derek Wolfe, no calls for the Broncos as far as he's concerned.
All right, Mark, let's talk about Chris Harris here. What kind of value could Chris Harris potentially bring?
Well, what you get with Chris Harris is a veteran presence, very smart player, crafty. When he's at the top of his game, one of the best corners in the league. So if you're looking at trading for Chris Harris, you know what you're going to get. He's been productive throughout his career. Physical presence as well. So you know you're getting a quality starter who can lead a younger group of DBs if you have that on your roster right now.
All right, Ian, O.J. Howard's name we've heard out there as well, the former first-round pick, the tight end with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but supposedly the Buccaneers want a lot for him. What are we hearing on O.J. Howard?
Yeah, my understanding is when teams have called, it's not like the Bucs have said we need a first-round pick, but at the very least, the teams I've spoken with believe that's the indication that they want a one, which makes sense. He was a first-rounder, still very talented, still trying to find his potential. And there's a lot of different ways the Bucs season could go, but they've played well. They've been in games. They've turned the ball over a lot. If that stops, they believe they have a chance at winning and kind of turning this around. Do they really want to trade some of their good young players for future high draft picks? We'll see. There are teams interested. I believe the Patriots would be one of those teams interested as well. Seattle lost Will Dissly. They have a need at tight end. But as of right now, it does not seem like the Bucs are going to deal him.
Mark, is O.J. Howard worth a one right now? Do you think someone's willing to give that up?
Well, probably so. I mean, when O.J. Howard came out of Alabama, he was probably one of the most complete tight ends you had seen in a long time. Usually you see a specialized tight end of smaller guys that can pass catch or bigger guys that block. O.J. did a little bit of everything. He was fast, great hands. He was a really competitive, strong blocker. Just been kind of underutilized, especially this year in Tampa. But you still see the potential that's there for him to be a perennial Pro Bowl tight end. So I think there still might be a lot of intrigue for O.J. Howard, despite not quite living up to his expectations at this point.
In a year in which Darren Fells right now leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns for tight ends with 5. There's Ian on the phone. There's Mark Ross. Hi, I'm Andrew Siciliano. Yes, it is busy, and there is other news than just the trade deadline here. We have a quarterback benching. Andy Dalton is getting benched in Cincinnati. How about that one? Tom Pelissero had the news there. Let's bring Tom back on the screen if we could, please. Tom, they're going with Ryan Finley here, the rookie out of NC State.
That's right, Andrew. The Bengals are looking for a spark here. They are sending Andy Dalton, their longtime franchise quarterback, to the bench, and Ryan Finley, a guy that they really liked in the 4th round of the draft. He was impressive in the preseason. Player out of NC State, brings a lot of translational types of skill sets to the table in terms of guys going from the college football game to the pro game. He has played in a pro-style system. Of course, the Bengals have had all sorts of challenges, from the injuries along their offensive line to a real personnel shortage on the defensive side. A.J. Green having not played a down this season. They're on the bye this week, coming off the London game. They're back on the field November 10th against the Ravens. And for the first time in a long time, it will not be Andy Dalton under center for the Bengals. It will be Ryan Finley. That also brings up questions about what Dalton's long-term future is with the Bengals. Owner Mike Brown said before the season he was going to see how this season played out before deciding whether or not to address Dalton's contract, which has 1 year remaining through 2020. At this stage, Andrew, it appears the Andy Dalton era in Cincinnati may well be over.
Okay, Tom, you said long-term future. Forget long-term. How about short-term future? The deadline is 3 hours away. Charlie Casserly, I threw it out there last week. Why don't the Bears go get Andy Dalton? I know that was a radical idea at the time. You don't rip the Mitch Trubisky Band-Aid off week 7 if you still think that you can get the guy to be a winning quarterback. But do you think anyone wants Andy Dalton right now?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that. I mean, that's just speculation. I don't know that you're turning your franchise around with Andy Dalton, though. Andy Dalton has a ceiling, and that's it. And this guy's a decent quarterback, but he's not an exceptional quarterback. Is he maybe better than Mitch Trubisky right now? Possibly, but what are you going to give up? What do you have to pay? And have you solved your quarterback problem long term? No. Cincinnati should have drafted a quarterback in the 1st round, I thought, last year, with the quarterbacks available. Now, I'll give you one thing on Finley. I watched every throw he made in preseason. Nobody played better than him. Daniel Jones played very good. This guy played every bit as good as Daniel Jones. Now, in college, you question arm strength and leadership. Well, I can't judge leadership in preseason. The arm was good enough. He was decisive. He was accurate. He showed touch. Kid was impressive. We'll see if he's for real in this thing.
In a totally unrelated story, today is Andy Dalton's 32nd birthday, I've been told. So that's what he gets on his birthday. He is benched for Ryan Finley here with the Bengals at 0-8. And Dalton is the first quarterback in the history of the National Football League to open a season as a starter 0-8, which is what the Bengals are, and also open a season 8-0, which is what Dalton did in 2015 when the Bengals swept the first half of the year. All right, again, trade deadline, 4 o'clock Eastern time. You're watching NFL Now here on NFL Network. There are other names potentially that could be on the move. Mike Garafolo. What about Darius Slay with the Lions? He will not go cheaply if somebody wants to pry him out of Matt Patricia's hands.
No, and I mentioned this on Good Morning Football earlier today that the price is high for him. We have then since put it up on our website on NFL.com and compared it to a Jalen Ramsey type package. That is something that was communicated at some point from the Lions to other teams as far as multiple first-round picks. I'm sure that was just posturing, I'll put it to you that way, but it is going to be a first-round pick and then some if a team wants to pry Darius Slay away from the Detroit Lions. And he is, in the minds of a lot of people, one of the top cornerbacks in the game right now, but to get anywhere near a Ramsey-type package, I don't see that happening, and I really don't believe that the Lions would stick to that. But high price if you want to get him away from the Lions today. First-round pick and then some. Again, depends on where that first-round pick is. If it's the Patriots pick, we know it's going to be toward the back of the first round. I'm not saying that they're in on it. I'm just saying not all first-round picks are created equal. So we'll see if it happens. Right now, not sensing any momentum on Darius Slay moving. I know the Eagles were mentioned, but they truly believe that they are getting healthy on the back end there. If it was a reasonable price, they'd be interested. I don't see them making a move for Darius Slay here.
And as you said, they were in it on Jalen Ramsey. Darius Slay, the next guy up there. A lot of high-priced veteran corners potentially could be had. Janoris Jenkins, Trumaine Johnson as well, former Rams with both the Giants and the Jets. It's also a question of who wants to be moving players here. The Lions still have a shot here to make a run. They're a talented team. What about teams like the Falcons? What about the Redskins bringing Tom Pelissero? Are they willing to move players, Tom? We heard Trent Williams' name thrown back out there by Ian again yesterday. The Falcons have already dealt Mohamed Sanu.
The Redskins have shown in the past 24 hours that they are suddenly ready to make some moves. Certainly Trent Williams has gotten as a guy that they've been calling around about, telling teams that they have a second-round pick on the table. That gives the impression that they're holding out at this stage for a one. They're also trying actively to move cornerback Josh Norman, who, of course, made his name in Carolina, was tagged at one point, had the tag rescinded, signed the monster deal with Washington. Well, he's been playing really banged up through the course of this season. He's due over $5 million for the rest of 2019. At this stage, doesn't seem like a lot of takers for him, but that's certainly a guy the Redskins would like to move, clear some cash. Same thing with the Falcons and Vic Beasley. They already traded Mo Sanu and got really good return from the Patriots with a second-round draft pick. Price would be much lower for Vic Beasley, who has shown in the past he can be a double-digit sack guy. He's due upwards of $6 million for the rest of this season. Could that have value as a designated pass rusher type to some team? He's a good kid, no off-the-field troubles. He is somebody who, again, has shown that he can be productive in the league, but that's a pretty steep price. There's 14 teams right now, Andrew, that have winning records in the NFL. Only half of those even would have $6 million in cap space right now to take on Vic Beasley. That's all sort of part of the complication with making these moves in season, especially when you've got guys who are making a bunch of money. That shortens the list of teams that could actually bring them in unless you're willing to pay a part of their salary. And this late up against the deadline, it's difficult for teams even to make that happen.
And that was a point that Bill Belichick brought up today. He was asked point blank during his conference call as they get ready for the Ravens, does the cap prevent you from making really any moves today? And he said it certainly is a complication. Charlie Casserly, from a Redskins perspective here, why all of a sudden wake up and say, sure, let's do Trent Williams now?
Well, they probably could have gotten a lot for him from Houston, possibly. That was the one team that was looking for a tackle. They were hot after people. Maybe that was the deal. I think it's at this point in time, let's see. They've always wanted a high pick for him. So let's make some phone calls. Let's see if we can get it. I think they're holding out for a number one draft choice. Now, certainly he's one of the best tackles in the league, but there is a little buyer beware. He's had injury issues. He's been suspended. Of course, he hadn't played this year, and he wants more money. Okay, but he is one of the most quality players in the league. Josh Norman, hey, he can't play. He can't run. So, I mean,